Good Friday evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett. We are still under a first alert until 11 p.m. tonight. Most of the storm system has already passed through. We've seen some very impressive gusty winds today and some heavy rainfall across the region. We've got one more blast tonight up towards our northern counties. I'll tell you about that in a moment. But let's just start with what we've got going on as far as watches and warnings go. I've never seen so much color on a map before. We've got the flood watch that will remain in effect until 5 p.m. on Saturday. Now, I'm skipping over a lot of the river flooding because those bright greens that you see on the map there, that is river flooding. So far, we've seen minor and moderate flooding, nothing that's getting to major flooding stage. In fact, looks like it's going to continue to wind down overnight tonight, but just the basic messaging there is stay away from the rivers for one, and two, if you do see any low-level flooding, just stay away from that as well. Try not to cross any creeks or any low-level water that you may find standing. Wind advisory stays in effect until 11 p.m. Friday night. That's everything that you see there in the tan. We've seen widespread power outages today. Looks like that should start to improve overnight. Now, that final blast of wind that I was just mentioning earlier will take place up towards Snohomish and some of our northern counties, where we're going to see winds gusting in excess of 50 and possibly up to 60 miles an hour. And it looks like that's going to last from about 11 p.m. through into the early morning hours of Saturday. Another place where we have a high wind warning in effect until 11 p.m. is down towards our south and west, where again we'll see some gusts that could possibly get up to about 65 miles an hour there. We'll be considerably calmer tomorrow. Winter weather advisory in effect in the mountains kicks in at 11 p.m. on Saturday, stays there until 10 p.m. on Sunday above 1,500 feet. We are about to see a plunge in snow levels. I'll show you what that looks like in a moment, but there could be some pass impacts. So here are your first alert headlines. One more wind blast tonight in that area that we just saw. We'll walk through that on an hour-by-hour basis. Plunging snow levels. I'm talking about between 4,500 and 5,000 feet of plunge overnight, and that will create some pass impacts, especially up towards Snoqualmie on Saturday and on Sunday. And then telling everybody sub-freezing temperatures are likely next week, even in the lowlands. Looks like we will get into the 20s and 30s in some of those overnight hours. In fact, looks like we've got a couple of cool days headed our way Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay, here's the fun part. This is the atmospheric river, that moisture plume that we tapped into. By 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, this thing's got places to go and people to meet, including coastal Oregon and down towards California. So let's start our story there. Northern California, especially up towards Lake Shasta, has been starving for water for a very long time. Looks like they're going to get their first significant drink over the next 24 hours. This thing continues to slide down towards the south, and you see just south of San Francisco, that's the Central Valley of California. That's where most of the agriculture for California takes place, and they haven't seen a good significant rain in a long time, so it looks like they're going to get a nice soaking as well. Those colors, those blue and whites that you see behind that, that's that cool air that's going to push in behind this system, and yes, there is more moisture on the way, but it doesn't look like it'll be an atmospheric river. We'll talk about that in a moment. Forecasted wind gusts tonight. Through most of the day today, friends up towards the north have been seeing some relatively calm winds, especially compared to what we've been seeing in the south and the southwest. Watch this. We fast forward to about 11 o'clock tonight. Now we're looking at the potential for those gusts to get up to about 50, 60 miles an hour. Look at Oak Harbor, look at Everett, look at Mount Vernon. The other thing too is it's going to stay gusty for a while. It's not just going to blast for about an hour or so. Looks like it takes until about mid-morning on Saturday for those winds to finally start to calm. In fact, as the frontal boundary passes, we'll see those winds become light and variable, especially as we go towards Sunday. Here's a look at Snoqualmie Pass and Stevens Pass, and the big story through most of the day on Friday has been that the roads are wet and passable. That changes overnight. Remember that elevator plunge that I was telling you about? 6,500 on Friday evening goes down to about 2,000 right after midnight, and that's going to allow some snow to start to accumulate on the roads there, and snow levels will stay very low. The big question right now is whether or not we will see low elevation snow as we go into next week. And I'll be honest, forecast models have been really struggling with that. We'll fine tune that as we continue to go through the weekend. I don't see it in Seattle, but I do see it in some spots, especially up towards the north near Bellingham and Mount Vernon. As far as future accumulated precipitation goes, again, we will see that switch over to snow in the mountain, well, above 2,000 feet there. So everything you're seeing in those purples, that's going to be snow and not rain. So here's how it plays out. This is midnight, Friday into early early Saturday morning, and you can see that frontal boundary passing through, and what has been rain through most of the day Friday now converting over to snow. So places like Stevens Pass, Snoqualmie Pass, and up towards Darrington, Mount Baker, even out towards Leavenworth will now switch over to snow. So this is what's called orographic snows. All that white that you see across the Cascades, that's just basically remnant moisture that's getting pushed by that slight westerly flow that will convert over to snow and start to fill up the Cascades and the mountain passes there. So this is 9 a.m. on Saturday. We catch a couple of breaks. In fact, Saturday evening it looks like things will calm down and quiet down, but there will still be snow flying up in the passes, including up towards Snoqualmie Pass. Now, Sunday morning at 5 a.m. is when that next system pushes in. That's going to bring more widespread rain in the lower elevations and some pretty heavy snow up into the mountains. So basically, if you're planning on traveling east, your best window to do that will be on Saturday evening, not on Sunday morning. There's going to be some heavy-duty snow and some gusty winds up there. And then down towards the south and west, we're going to be tracking some moderately heavy rain. Even across Seattle and Tacoma, it's going to be a wet start. By about Sunday evening at 6 p.m., we see that snow continuing in the mountains, but we see the rain clearing in the lower elevations of Puget Sound, still raining along the coast and still heavy snow flying up towards the Olympics. As that low continues to push through, we'll start to see some clearing on Monday, right around midday. But take a look at that. See up towards Blaine, Mount Vernon. So far, forecast models are suggesting that we could see some low elevation snow there, but there's a couple of variables we're watching for. If we get some of that cold air coming out of British Columbia, especially from the Fraser Valley, that's going to be the determining factor as to whether or not we'll see that low elevation snow. And again, to be perfectly honest, I'm not seeing anything conclusive there, so that's something that we'll fine tune as we go throughout the weekend. As far as snow accumulation goes, well, yep, no more rain accumulation in the mountains. Now it's all switching over to snow. So by the time we get to Saturday morning around 8:30, we're expecting about 6 inches to accumulate at Snoqualmie Pass. So again, there will already be travel impacts early on Saturday. By the time we get to Saturday night, about 12 hours later, we'll double that total. We get up to about a foot of accumulated snow up towards Snoqualmie Pass. So again, could be some travel impacts. On Thursday night, we saw some snow up there, and that closed the roads in both directions as people were sliding out all over the place. So again, if you are planning on heading up into the mountains or eastbound on I-90 or even Highway 2, make sure you bring your snow game with you, including traction tires and or chains and or cables. By the time we get to 6:30 p.m. on Sunday, that's when that second system kicks through. Looks like we'll start to see some significant accumulations. Again, Snoqualmie Pass gets up to about 17 inches. Mission Ridge picks up about 1.5 feet. Stevens Pass picks up a little bit over a foot, and Baker cleans up. They'll be closing in on 2 feet, and it looks like more is on the way next week. Overnight lows will be chilly tonight, but not so bad. Pretty much average for this time of year. We'll see some upper 30s and some lower 40s across the region. Port Angeles and Forks will be 37. Over the next 12 hours in Seattle, we start to see some clearing. In fact, it looks like we'll get to see the moon in the early morning hours, something we haven't done for, well, a couple of days now. And it looks like we'll see some clearing that could bring some sunshine in the early morning hours. 7-day forecast shows temperatures in the 40s pretty much throughout the day on Saturday. And then I want to point your attention towards Tuesday and Wednesday. It's going to be cold. We're talking about overnight lows that will get below freezing both Tuesday and Wednesday, including in the lower elevations. Take a look at that. Low temperature on Wednesday is currently slated to get down into the upper 20s, and that does include Seattle and the Puget Sound region. So bottom line, if you haven't made those preps yet to maybe get some of the pipes and some of the things that could potentially freeze secured for winter weather, this weekend's going to be the time to do it. That is your first alert forecast. I am Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett. Stay warm, stay safe, and as always, keep looking up.